welcome back to the Boropolis podcast. As always, I am joined by Nathan. And well, we're just, what can we say? We're in dreamland still. We haven't woken up yet. Boro are top of the league with a nice little cushion from second. They have won again under the lights at the Riverside on Friday evening, and that officially makes it Boro's best ever start to a league season. It's, well, like I've just said, Nathan, the stuff of dreams, to be honest.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's something that we definitely didn't expect when we were sat here 2 months ago, giving our season preview and seeing the state of the squad with the lack of signings with a couple of weeks to go before the season starting. And here we are, 6 games into the season, top of the pile for this week and next as well, with a 4 point cushion over second place and a 5 point cushion over Bristol City in third as well. But not that we're looking at the league table quite yet, by the way. But it is very nice to get off to best start that the club has ever had in a league season. Yeah, it's fantastic and a great time to be a Borough fan at the minute.
It certainly is. And I mean, I've just said to you, just double checking, how many games have we played, Nathan? Because I think everyone collectively, or at least this is the way that I'm going about things, until we hit that magical, you've played 10 games, so you're allowed to start looking at the table, then I'm kind of trying to contain my excitement until then. At the very minimum, I mean, don't get me wrong, I still do flick the league table on like once or twice a day just to make sure that we're still there. But yeah, once it hits that 10th game, and assuming that we're still there, I dread to think of the screen time that I'm going to spend just looking at the league table, to be honest. So, yeah, all things, well, pretty much all things are rosy in the Borough Garden. Of course, it wouldn't be Middlesbrough without a little bit of injury chatter to get the pod started for this week. We did have the very unfortunate news that Daryl Lenihan was going to be missing from the team on Friday evening. Still remains to be seen kind of what that injury actually is. There was a little bit of chatter and rumours on social media that it was not looking too good. From what Rob Edwards said after the game, it sounds like they're a little bit unsure, and he kind of pushed back and didn't really want to go into the details of what it is, or basically if it's as bad as kind of what the some of the rumours are. So, we don't want to kind of speculate too much. And then of course Dale Fry, it seems like a recurrence of that calf injury. So, with Dale Fry, unfortunately, it's just reality now that you're never going to get a fully fit Dale Fry for sort of months and months at a time. He is going to pick up little knocks and things like that. But it did sound slightly promising that he kind of might be backing in around it this week, I think. So other than those two, of course, we'll get into the team and the changes. But we've kind of again been shown, despite those injuries, that the squad is not only strong in numbers, but also in terms of flexibility and players that can do a role in a couple of positions. I think we're now beginning to see already that Rob Edwards will use his squad, but also that the type of recruitment that became so important this summer is definitely benefiting Borough already.
Yeah, of course, we looked at the back end of last season and sort of needing players to play a variety of different positions and play them confidently as well. And obviously shifting to a back three this year, we needed to sort of stockpile on players that can play centre half in any of those roles, really. And we're already sort of seeing the sort of struggles that you've got when you've got players like Fry, Lenahan, Edmondson as well, to an extent that have all had injury wars over the last year or so, or even longer, really, and what damage that can do to a squad, considering we are in September and currently three of them have gone down with injuries, albeit we don't know really the severity of all of them yet. But yeah, it's good that we had a couple of players within the squad, which we'll get onto in the game to be able to be flexible and adapt to a situation that we didn't really foresee happening during the game.
Yeah, yeah, we certainly didn't. In terms of the team for West Brom, I think it was probably, other than, Edmondson coming in for Lenihan, what would have been Fry if he was fit, arguably our best team at the moment, our strongest team that we could probably field. I think it's the lineup, especially the forward line, that a lot of Middlesbrough fans have been so excited, and rightfully so, to see Tommy Conway, Strelec, and Sven Nipan all play together. Again, obviously we'll get into it as we go, but probably a little bit still trying to figure out whether it is going to be flexible with Conway and Strelic playing together and Nipan off them, or Tommy Conway certainly started the game more so off the left in kind of one of those 2-10 positions. But yeah, I was delighted with the team. I thought it was as good of a team that Rob Edwards could have picked, and yeah, I mean, going into the game was just really. I said to you, funnily enough, it didn't transpire, but I was that confident upon hearing the team. I actually don't know why or what's gotten into me. I felt like we were going to give West Brom a little bit of a doing, and it didn't quite go that way. But we got the 3 points, didn't we? But it could have got off to quite a bad start, because after only a few minutes, Solbrin was diving around, kind of clearing balls off his line, wasn't he?
Yeah, we didn't get off to the best start, really. The first chance of the game falls to Isaac Price, and he fires a shot, which at first I thought took a deflection, but I suppose it just lands at Nat Phillips's feet. He sort of does well to control it initially, and Solbrin's already dived, anticipating Price's shot into the corner, leaving a big wide open space in the back of the net. And Phillips tries to find that corner, but Edmondson does really well, I think, to sort of get across, dive with his feet at the ball, and sort of divert it back towards Bryn, who saves with his feet. But yeah, I felt that in the early stages of the game that we struggled really a little bit anyway, in terms of we didn't really get our foot on the ball all too much early on. West Brom dominated the ball for long periods of the game, but especially that first half as well, the first half of the first half. Yeah, I think that a lot of that was down to our two in midfield versus their three, with Moat, Diakite, and Malumbi playing a little bit further forward. I felt that Moat dropping in, Diakite being sort of like a middleman, and Malumbi playing almost like a number 10 role at some positions was a little bit strange to see. But yeah, they kept finding Malumbi in space further up the pitch in between the lines, albeit nothing really coming from finding him in those positions, by the way. But yeah, I think that to adapt to that, Edwards sort of brought Nipan a little bit further in to make that a midfield three in the middle of the first half. But I thought that we looked okay despite not having the ball. As I say, we limited West Brom to not a lot, or not being able to create too many chances. There was only one really in the first sort of 20-25 minutes that I can remember, apart from the one that we've spoke about where a ball was going to be dinked over the top of Hegbo. Edmondson and him were sort of hustling, and I think that he was going to get the better of him, but I think he just strayed offside moments before the ball
He,
was
he
played.
he
So
was, yeah, I was just going to say he was quite lucky actually, because I think Edmonton was ready to rip his shirt off, because he'd spun him, he'd rolled him completely. So it is a good job, and obviously credit to Boro's line for staying high and catching the West Brom striker offside. In terms of George Edmondson being lucky, Boro's opener on the night, it's a foul throw, and I'm amazed. I think obviously we're fortunate in our seats, but there's been no talk about it. The Sky coverage didn't seem to pick it up, and I haven't seen a lot of social media talk about it. But from where we sit, sorry, in the stadium, which is literally directly, albeit slightly to the right, but pretty much directly behind George Edmondson, his heel goes up. He doesn't have 2 feet planted on the ground when he takes the throw in. And to be honest, I almost, both me and my dad said it's a foul throw straight away, and kind of like almost looked at each other and then looked back, and Strelec was putting it in the net. So I saw the flick on, but I was just like almost lost in the moment of thinking, oh well, the referee's just going to disallow the goal. I don't know if you saw again. Obviously, we've got a good view of it, but there was a bit of a protest from Ryan Mason and Dami Arabella, funnily enough, on the West Brom coaching staff. But yeah, not a lot of talk about it, but Boro kind of a little bit fortunate in the end. Obviously, great movement and really great from Luke Ayling again to, as we saw last week, get that first contact and get across his man. And yes, Strelec, kind of why we paid the money for him, really. A clever bit of movement, loses his man and just prods it in. And to be honest, it was kind of similar to the equaliser last week had Strelec have managed to bundle it in at Preston. Same setup, obviously from a throw, but yeah, a little bit lucky, but who am I to complain? I was delighted to see Big Dave get on the score sheet and get his first for the club.
Yeah, it was really nice. And look, we've talked about all sort of seasons so far that finding different avenues, score goals. And look, it was a long throw that wasn't too long, but the important thing was that he found Luke Ayling's head for the flick on. Yeah, as you say, it's pretty much a carbon copy of Preston and the first contact from the corner last week that resulted in our second equaliser. Ayling wins the first contact. Strelec gets free from Hegebo. And I think that was something like his fifth touch in the game, Strelec. He didn't really have too much early on and to get away from his man and divert that below Josh Griffiths with a nice little finish. Gets him off the mark, which is really important for a new signing. And yeah, it gets us into the lead as well. I suppose we didn't really create too much before that. Conway had a half chance where he beat Nat Phillips up the line and then had a shot from a tight angle. But yeah, didn't create too much early on. But as I say, we're creating different avenues to score goals. And it's very nice to be able to do that, I suppose, rather than just sort of trying to force the same moves time and time again. We've got loads of different ways of scoring now in our arsenal, which is really important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And obviously, we'll get onto it in terms of the change at half time, but it was very, very obvious that David Strelec is going to be a really good signing for Middlesbrough, I thought. You saw even in the glimpse of him at Preston, he's very technically good. He's a lot bigger, and obviously that was my first time seeing him in person. He's a lot bigger than I thought he was. So he's, a physical presence as well as a very good technical forward. I think once his fitness is up to speed, we'll see him possibly swap roles with Tommy Conway, perhaps on the right more so, and playing off Conway rather than the number nine role that he's playing at the moment. It was very clear to see, and again, just touching on our seats in the ground, so many times in the first half, Rob Edwards was going on and on and on at Strelec to either keep on making runs or press faster and press harder. And I think it was apparent, and this is no slight on Strelec because I thought although he didn't have a lot of the ball, in the times when he did get hold of the ball or had a touch, he more often than not picked the right option or done something good and made the right decision. But it's going to take probably, I don't know, a month or so and a bit of extra kind of sprinting after training, I guess, to get him up to the standards that Rob Edwards wants because he did look knackered, bless him, at half time.
Yeah, I think it was just a little bit of a shock to the system, the pace of the game, because it was very sort of frantic at times in that first half. West Brom as well zipped it around quite well. Be fair credit to them, they look like a good side in possession of the ball. But yeah, Strelec struggled a little bit with the pace of the game. He did well sort of later on in that first half, got the ball in the channel and nutmegged to West Brom defender. Just couldn't get round him. But yeah, I wasn't too surprised really to see him taken off at half time, knowing what Rob Edwards is like now in the
Yeah.
last, well, since the beginning of the season. Doesn't mind making half time changes. And yeah, I think to be fair, as you say, our seats in the ground, you could see Edwards giving Strelick a little bit of a hard time, maybe. I wasn't too surprised to see that change, but I thought that he did relatively okay and showed enough signs, given his sort of little impact in terms of touches. I thought that he showed some good signs of what we'll be able to see in the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we did make a change before half time. It was enforced, and it looked a very sore one for George Edmondson. And in all honesty, I've seen quite a fair few people say this, but a disappointing one, not only because it meant a rejig of things, but I actually felt George Edmondson had done pretty well. There was a funny exchange in the first kind of 10 or 15 minutes where him and I want to say it may have been Nat Phillips. I honestly can't remember which West Brom player it was, but they were effectively playing head tennis for probably 5 or 6 headers back and forth to one another. And I thought, yeah, I mean, Fridge by name, Fridge by nature. He was just sticking his bonds where it hurt. And I must say, special credit because even before it became blatantly obvious that he was going to have to go off and he could only see out of one eye, when he actually gets back onto the pitch after going off, he still wins another header with
Yeah.
one eye. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that's not going to be a kind of long one, but I guess with an area like that with your eye, you certainly don't want to be taking any risks. I don't know what the sort of, and obviously there's rules in place and regulations for concussion, but I think with an eye, I don't know what kind of. I don't expect him to play on Saturday, to be honest, looking at the state of it.
Yeah, I think there might be a chance. It just depends on how quickly that swelling goes down, really.
Yeah.
Edwards said after the game that there wasn't a concussion there for him, which is good. Means that he would be able to play Saturday if obviously his eye is okay and he's given the all clear from the doctor. But yeah, it's just one of those. I think he's just sort of with Hegebo and he just sort of heads the back of his head. It was sort of funny watching the Sky coverage back once I got home and seeing Hegebo actually apologising to Edmondson when he came off. I was like, you didn't know anything about it. Edmondson's just headed the back of your head. Yeah, it looked like a very sore one, big keggy on his eye. And yeah, we saw the aftermath on Saturday morning as well, which was just a bit big, massive, swollen eye, which isn't
Yeah.
great. But yeah, fingers crossed they can drain some of the excess blood from that and get him fit and firing for next Saturday.
Let's hope so. I mean, what we did see, courtesy of George Edmondson, unfortunately having to go off, was a little bit of a rejig, and that meant that Matt Target, Tiggs, look, I don't know him on a personal level, but I kind of find myself calling him Tiggs all the time now, as if I do know him well enough to give him a nickname. He filled in as a left centre half and again just showed I thought, and there's not been, there was obvious standouts on the night, but no one, I haven't seen too much talk about just how at ease he looked playing that role as a wide centre back. It's obviously different to being a wing back or just being a full back, and I thought he filled in really well. Just again, just very much like Alfie Jones, Callum Britton. Of course, they all have standout attributes, but that back line, especially, despite being rejigged and playing in different combinations of the five, they're just very reliable. And a lot of Boro's positive form is just, I honestly believe, down to the solid foundations that are built on that back five. As I say, we'll get onto individuals and how well some of these players are playing at the moment and the levels that they're performing at. But yeah, it's a special mention to Matt Target because he filled in and did a great job. And I thought Silvera did pretty well as well in a game where, to be honest, you're not kind of using him to his strengths or at least giving him the opportunity to use them because it was very much a case of a lot of the time West Brom had possession and we kind of just had to move in shape and just basically prevent them from creating anything. I don't want to again use it as a slight. It felt very Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough watching West Brom. A lot of possession with not that much end product created from it. So yeah, I think Middlesbrough. as you said, despite not having a lot of the ball, it never felt uncomfortable at all. And as you also said, Nathan, I felt that the sub at half time was the correct decision. I wasn't shocked by it at all. And despite a disappointing, probably, moment for him last weekend for Kalisen, he bounced back better than he probably even expected himself because he worked tirelessly when he come on, pressed and pressed and pressed, and also scored or put the finishing touches on a superb Middlesbrough move and a really, really great Middlesbrough goal.
Yeah, it was a fantastic goal, wasn't it? I think it was one of those where you see it in the ground live as it's happening, and you see the shot going into the corner, and you're almost shocked that your team's produced it, unless you're Man City or Liverpool or Barcelona. It was just fantastic. A lot of players playing a part as well in the move. Kept the ball from the back and sort of moved it forward. And Britton, Morris, Conway, Sen, Hackney, all playing a really important role in the goal. Some quick one-touch passing to get beyond a couple of West Brom midfielders, get through to that last line. Conway's there, squares it. Hackney's touch is really, really important. I think to just take that weight off it and sort of keep it rolling, but take the weight off it for Sen to sort of shuffle it out of his feet and just swing his left boot at it, and he puts it right in the corner, in off the post. Yeah, it made everyone settle down a little bit after half time as well, I think, because as I say, despite West Brom not threatening all too much, they were sort of growing into it in the period between 50 and 60 minutes. And then yeah, Boro score on the hour near enough. Yeah, it just settled everyone down. Really, really good team goal. And we've seen back now on Sky and a couple of replays. It was very much the players going over to congratulate Kalisen, but everyone immediately pointing to their heads, keep switched on, keep concentrated. As you hear on the clip of Aidan Morris going over to Kalisen, when that ball goes out of play, you make sure you get back. And to be fair, they did work the socks off after that goal as well and just kept in the shape, kept pressing, kept winning the ball. Yeah, we were pretty relentless in that second half.
Yeah, we were. I thought, other than the slight blemish, which is of course the goal, I thought Borough were great. I'm really trying not to get excited, but I love this team already. I really do. I just love the pragmatism. I love the fact that they just hold each other so accountable. You see Morris saying, if you make a mistake or you lose the ball, get back. And it's not a, oh, brilliant, Callie, what a finish. It's a, right, we're 2-0 up, but this doesn't slip. And with characters and with a mentality like that, I feel like you're going to go a long way. And at the moment, Middlesbrough are reaping the rewards for that, really. They are, I think, what actually, strangely enough, Strelec going off and not having a full preseason with the squad showed is actually how fit this group of Middlesbrough players are. They are relentless in their press, and obviously certain players have that in abundance. Some players, like anyone going for a run, sometimes they can build up fitness quicker. Sometimes they just have a natural kind of cardiovascular ability to just run and run and run like Aidan Morris or Tommy Conway. But it as I say, I enjoy, and I know that there was concerns, and there's still probably people that would argue that I'd rather watch Michael Carrick's team. And to that, and it's not a personal Michael Carrick thing. It goes to any team that try and play basically the Pep Guardiola style of horseshoe it round. It doesn't really matter if we're not creating anything. Just keep the ball. As long as it looks pretty, then that's fine. I've always been of the opinion that winning football is always much better to watch. And if that means going through periods of game when you don't have the ball, I almost appreciate the running, the chasing, the harrying, just as much as I appreciate keeping the ball for 5 minutes at a time and not creating anything. And I mean, we'll go into some of the individuals, obviously, once we just touch on the West Brom goal. But I mean, Aidan Morris in particular. I know Luke Ayling got man of the match from BBC and also on Sky, but Aidan Morris just and Tommy Conway, the pair of them just absolutely epitomise what is absolutely fantastic about this Middlesbrough team at the moment. They're just relentless, and every time you think, right, okay, they probably either need to go off now or they look knackered, they're done in. They produce another sprint or another chase or win another duel, and yeah, the whole team as a whole again terrific, and again seeing Middlesbrough win in different ways, and I think most importantly, and the stadium, the crowd are beginning to feed into it. There is very much each week and each result that passes, it's a us against everyone mentality. And I thought the atmosphere in the stadium was terrific. Obviously, it helps when you've got more numbers in there, but I don't know. There's just a again trying to curb my enthusiasm a little bit because I don't want to get myself hurt, but it does feel like there's definitely something building here.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, it's hard not to say otherwise, really, after your best ever league start. But yeah, we've kept some really good parts of Michael Carrick's football, which I think, like that second goal the other day, I wouldn't have been surprised if Boro last year or the year before had scored that goal with sort of almost like tiki-taka, silky football, one touch in tight spaces and working it round really well. But the pragmatism of this side is certainly all the doing of Rob Edwards and his coaching staff. And it's just nice to be able to feel comfortable whether you're going to get caught. To be fair, we don't really get caught on breaks, really, because we don't sort of hurl loads of men forward and leave us light at the back anymore. It's just very nice to sort of feel comfortable and sort of be able to control a game out of possession as well. West Brom, as I say, looked okay on Friday. Was relatively impressed with the way that they kept the ball, but they didn't create anything really. They had one chance at the start of the second half, which was a Price header from a relatively tight angle that he put wide, and the one that we spoke about at the start of the game, which again was a little bit fortuitous the way that it landed, but they opted to throw crosses into the box at times, headed away by Jones, Ayling, Target, and the rest. Solbrin claiming balls. And to be fair, I thought that he claimed balls really well for pretty much all night until the end of the game, in which Johnston puts in and whips a ball into the box, and Hegabo just sort of climbs above target and flicks in. But Bryn, he knows he came for that ball and just sort of misjudged it. He was caught in two minds by the time that he'd already decided he was coming. He stopped and it loops over his head and into the back of the net, and it's 2-1. And it sort of leads to a sort of nervy 5 minutes of stoppage time. But the goal went in, and I looked down at Rob Edwards, and he's got his hands up, lifting the crowd, saying, "Come on, now we need you. We need to get over the line." And to be fair, West Brom didn't do anything for the next 5 minutes. We just kept it in their half of the pitch for the most part, throwing balls into the corner with Kali Sen, who I thought obviously he scores the goal after coming on. I thought that he found it a little bit difficult at times up against two big centre halves, but he's in the corner trying his best to hold off Mepham. And yeah, in the end, the standout for me in stoppage time, which I don't think it necessarily got all too much of a lift from the crowd or anything, but Morris, who put his absolute all in for 90 minutes. In the 93rd minute, ball gets played down the channel to Johnson, who's just come on, and he's rapid. And Morris just shoulder barges Johnston miles out of play, and the ball goes out of play, and it's a Boro throw. And it raised me out of my seat personally to give it a come on. Like, we're nearly there. We're nearly pushing for a massive 3 points. And what felt like before the game going to the ground on Friday night, and I don't know why, whether it was on TV or whether I sort of in the back of my mind knew that there was more fans there on Friday night. We had a bumper crowd at the Riverside, nearly 30,000. I just thought, come on, we need to get 3 points. We can't sort of let the fans down on this night, especially being 2-0 up as well in the
Yeah,
game. We can't throw this away. So really, really nice. And to be fair, again, a point on Morris in probably the 95th minute. The ball goes to Griffiths. And I'm thinking, just sit in your shape. And Morris is like sprinting to go and close the goalkeeper down. I'm like, "Oh, just sit in and win the second ball." But yeah, I thought that to a man, they were all fantastic on Friday night. I think it's going to be a regular theme, and you can't really moan about it for the entire season. But this team are going to bust the bollocks week in, week out for for each other, for the coaching staff, for the fans. They're going to absolutely run themselves into the ground. And once again, they did that, and they got the just rewards. 3 points in the bag, live on Sky. Put a marker down to the rest of the division on Friday night and say, "Yeah, over to you, lads. See what you're about over the weekend."
yeah. It's a lovely one, isn't it? When you come out of the Riverside on a Friday evening and your job's done, and you can just sit back and have a bit of a giggle at all of the unfortunate events of the rest of the weekend and all the other teams, dropping points and conceding goals, and you just think, I could get used to this, absolutely. But yeah, I think deservedly so. There's probably a few that we need to single out from Friday evening, and I mean, you've spoken about him there. Aidan Morris. For me, I thought at the beginning of last season he was absolutely terrific, and then he, strangely enough, got injured, and Middlesbrough kind of went off the boil a little bit. He then returned and was very good, but wasn't quite at the height of him first kind of not few appearances, but first few weeks of last season. And I thought even then he was playing at a really high level. He's exceeding that now. And to be honest, he's playing that well that for me, I'm now just as worried about someone coming and putting big money on the table for Aidan Morris as I am Hayden Hackney in January, because he is playing just incredibly well. I know we joke about it and it's a bit of a funny one. The shape of him, and I mean no disrespect, because if you've seen Boro's Day in the Life of Aidan Morris, the lad's absolutely ripped to shreds. But he's a stockier build, and you almost don't expect him to be able to like get round the pitch as much as he does. But he just does not get tired, and it's not just his relentless running and his work ethic and his pressing. He's just got so much quality. There's a moment I think it's just before West Brom scored. It might have been after. I can't really remember. Sort of last 10 minutes of the game where there's a ball to be won in midfield and it's up to basically it's an aerial challenge. And rather than trying to bring it down, he flicks it over a West Brom player's head, turns out, and starts off an attack. And I'm just thinking, you are unbelievable at football. And do you know what? My brother actually works for Newcastle United Foundation, so a lot of the time he is in attendance for Newcastle games. And as anyone that knows any Newcastle fans, Bruno can do no wrong in the eyes of Newcastle fans. And he says to me all the time, whenever he watches Middlesbrough, he reminds me of Bruno. He's just the heart of Borough's midfield, and very rarely. I mean, I know he did give everyone a little bit of a scare at one point in the second half, but he's just, yeah, I can't speak highly enough of him. He is just so good in all aspects of his game. And I think the only thing missing would be, for him really start to having big clubs and eyes on him would be to start adding goals to his game. But I don't even think that's a must because he brings you so much even without that.
Well, never mind that, to be fair. I think that it's a World Cup year coming up, and in the last international camp, he wasn't in the America squad,
It's
which
honestly crazy to me.
it's unfathomable, really. When you see what he's bringing to this side, I don't know whether it's a viewpoint from across the pond that the Championship isn't a proper division, but they've also got two of their main strikers playing in this division as well and banging goals in. So it's to be fair, both those, I know they're in different positions, but Morris is literally putting in man of the match performances week in, week out at the minute for a team that's top of the pile. So he's probably gonna get called up for America in the next break, which is in 2 weeks' time. But if he doesn't, Jesus Christ, I don't know what they'll be watching, if I'm honest. But yeah, he was frightening on Friday night. Really, really good. There was another moment towards the back end of the second half where he sort of just took the ball off a West Brom attacker down near the northwest corner, and he could have just played a pass inside, but instead he just dinked it over a West Brom player and then took the ball back off Britain and just drove inside. And I just thought, yeah, it's just ridiculous to be playing with this level of confidence, really. But yeah, he was outstanding, and I thought that another player who you've spoken on, who obviously puts his all in, week out. And as I said last week, at the start of this season, said that if we're going to play longer like we did in the first game, and Tommy Conway is going to be our number nine, then we'll probably struggle a little bit unless we start playing into his feet a little bit more. But playing off the left, he just looked a little bit more comfortable on Friday night. I thought that last week as well at Preston when he was playing up the middle, I thought he had a really good game in the first half. Done well to link play and connect the attack to the midfield with Whitaker last week and also Hackney and Morris coming in behind him. But then on Friday, I thought that the things that were the best part of him and the best part of his game was just his constant harrying. If the ball got played into a West Brom fullback, Conway's always chasing in, always going to nick the ball back. And I think that the only sort of frustration that I did have with him on Friday was just that last little bit, his end product, his next pass after he nicked the ball was sometimes a little bit wayward, sometimes a little bit off. But then again, the moment that matters, he does really, really well for the second goal. And yeah, just keeps his cool, looks across, plays it to Hayden. And I think he's actually aiming for Cali Sen, but Hayden just does really well to sort of take that weight off the pass. And yeah, it's a cracking finish. But yeah, he does really epitomise this team, Conway. Just constant running, constant work rate. Him and Morris are like two peas in a pod, aren't they?
Well, they seem to be off the pitch as well, aren't they? Well, actually, strangely enough, another one of the ones that kind of on the notes that we've singled out, Callum Britton seems to have joined that little crew, doesn't he? Going for shopping trips to get the fridge all styled up. And I must say, in that, I know I did post on the Boropolis Twitter account, but he did look a lot better, to be fair. He had a right go in for training one day this week. I don't know when the video was filmed, but yeah. So they've done a good job. They're not only excellent football players, they're great stylists as well. Yeah, Callum Britton, as I say, another one of their crew. He is got to be right up there as one of the best right backs in the division for me. And I know it's always a funny one because, as an example, Alfie Jones, a lot of Hull fans told us, yeah, he's all right, but he's gone off the boil a little bit, and he's not as he's not great. We're quite kind of not happy to lose him, but it's not the end of the world, and he's been absolutely excellent. Callum Britton was the opposite in the sense of Blackburn fans were telling us you are getting one of the best right backs in the league, and they definitely weren't lying because again, I feel like I've used the word about 11 times during this podcast, but relentless, up and down. He is very much like when we played five at the back under Chris Wilder and we signed Ryan Giles, and it just felt like a match made in heaven. Callum Britton to Rob Edwards in this system feels exactly the same. It's the absolute perfect player that we could have signed for that right wing back role. And I think it is a case of he is getting better game by game. He's affecting games higher up the pitch, but he's so reliable defensively. I thought, especially obviously when you've already ran up and down that right wing numerous times, and then they bring Mikey Johnson on, who was a really tricky customer, and as you said earlier, very quick. There was only really the one cross that he does put in for the goal, which he's crossing it in from quite a deep position, so you don't expect Britain to be stopping the cross there. But every time you run him down the line, he blocked the cross. He didn't let him go by him. I think there was one time Johnston kind of dummied like a bit of a fake shot, and Britain fell for it. And that was once, and it resulted in nothing. But yeah, I thought he was terrific. And the man to the left hand side of him, the wide right centre back, again, you kind of think, and everyone, I'll admit it, any Middlesbrough fan would admit it. Let's be honest, he was completely written off at the start of the season, and he's just a player reborn. Man of the match on Sky, man of the match on BBC Tees, turned into Messi's reincarnation in added time just after West Brom had scored. I thought he was about to hit goal of the season when he just jinked through about four players and then struck one just into the south stand. But yeah, Luke Ayling is again a bit like Britain. To be honest, he's just Mr. Reliable, and he seems to almost get better with games. And he's added like sort of assists to his game now, and I guess you could kind of half give him a half assist for last weekend at Preston.
Yeah, he's harking it back to his loan spell, isn't he? Where he just couldn't stop getting assists week in, week out. Yeah, he's doing really, really well in that right-sided centre back role. And to be fair, in his interview on Tees on Friday night after picking up the Man of the Match award, he sort of explained that in the last couple of years he's been thinking about that centre back role and moving in there. I think he sort of appreciated that his legs have sort of gone a little bit, and that moving inside would have been beneficial for his career to sort of extend it out a little bit further. And he's doing a cracking job of it at the minute. He's doing really, really well. Wins his tackles, reads the game really well. He's of a certain size and stature where he's good in the air, and yeah, he can just deal with balls into the box all day. Same as Jones, same as Fry, same as Edmondson, same as Lenihan. All really, really good at dealing with balls into the box in the air and just being stoppers, really.
Yeah,
And yeah, I thought that he did well on Friday, and as I say, it's an assist for Raylan and nearly a goal, but I'd probably given it to Morris
yeah. I must
just
admit, I was shocked that Morris didn't get it on BBC Tees or Sky, but yeah, I mean, there was so many contenders to be honest because there was so many good performances, and just on Luke Ayling as well. I think what sometimes goes under the radar a lot of the time, the pass that goes into midfield or goes past the midfield and he goes a little bit longer, he's actually a very good passer. He's very sort of underrated on the ball, and we saw during his loan spell especially that he's got a very good crossing ability, and obviously we don't see that as much anymore. But I think it is one of his qualities that he is, what he sort of lacks in pace and some other elements of his game. He certainly makes up for with, as you say, his ability to defend the box, and I do think honestly although it's Middlesbrough and we've got, you know, injury problems, even when we're doing as well as what we are, and especially that centre back area, it just seems to be like, I don't know, a target for some reason. But when Adilson Malanda comes in and if Fry is fit and available at that point and if Alfie Jones is fit and available. I think Luke Ayland's form is will probably continue to keep Malanda out of the team even when he's available, to be honest, because although we've invested a big amount of money into him, and obviously everyone's very excited about him, but Ayland is an integral part in that back five, and yeah, long may it continue again, like this form, because he's had an excellent start to the season. So I mean, we have touched on it, Nathan. Middlesbrough's best ever league start, 16 points out of a possible 18, 5 wins, 1 draw. It's going back to my point about, I don't know, something building. I think we're gonna just decide right now that we're not gonna use the P word, the AP words, if you get what I'm referring to. But at what stage, I guess, do you start to think this isn't just a great start to the season? When do you think? And I'm not saying when do you think that Boro are promotion contenders, but when do you think that actually what Rob Edwards and his coaching staff are doing and the performances that these Middlesbrough players are putting in? When do we kind of go, yeah, this isn't just a good run of form. This is a really good team, and they're pragmatic and they win points and they fight tooth and nail. But again, I think a lot of people are trying to, and Middlesbrough fans as well, trying to play it down because we don't want to get overly excited. And I'm the same, but it's a really really solid performance on Friday night, and again, just I can't help but feel excited. And the thing is, it doesn't. I'm sure someone would tell me that the numbers or the underlying data won't be sustainable, but it feels like the way that we play is sustainable and will get you points in this division because you've got a group of players that have no option but to work hard, and also a manager that's not only proactive but doesn't care about egos, doesn't care about price tags. He will make substitutions and he will absolutely utilize his squad. And again, credit to the recruitment team because they've provided him with those tools. But he will use this squad. He is not going to be waiting round to give someone the odd 5 minutes or the odd 10 minutes. If he sees something, he's going to act on it quickly. And how many times did we complain about that not happening last season? I mean, Alan Brown, we haven't even mentioned him without being the star of the show. I thought he did really well and come on at a crucial time and really help Middlesbrough in midfield.
Yeah, he did. And Kante as well, to be fair, came
Yeah,
on and just sort of does what Kante does really. Just provides you legs to get round midfield, harries and harasses the opposition into making mistakes, although he was only on the pitch for a small amount of time. But I think from my own sort of perspective, the time where I'll really start believing or thinking about where this team could possibly go will be the following. So, not this international break coming up in a couple of weeks. Once we get the batch full of games after that, so no, November break, I'll come on here and give you my proper verdict on this team after seeing what will be about a third of the season by that point. But uh, you just look at the fixture list, and even though that we've had a well on paper, as Opta told us, the most difficult start out of any side in the division, still just can't see a game where I don't think, oh yeah, we still could class that as a tap in. Really, I mean, to be fair, it is the championship, and this is Middlesbrough Football Club we're talking about, so no game is ever a tap in. But like the fixtures are just insane. We'll get on to Southampton in more detail in a minute, but Southampton, Stoke, who got off to a really good start this season, with Mark Robbins in charge, who's like kryptonite for the most part. Portsmouth, who got a shock yesterday again against Sheffield Wednesday at home, but Portsmouth have impressed me from everything that I've seen of them so far this season. A break. Then you have Ipswich, who are the league favourites really at the start of the season. And okay, they haven't got off to the best start that they would have hoped to have got off to, but they have quality of the highest level for this division. And yeah, following on from that, Sheffield Wednesday, Wrexham, teams that Sheffield Wednesday, people will point to that and say that's tapping that you'd class it as. But those players are absolutely putting their all in, week out. It's just relentless, the championship. You'd never have an easy game, and you can always look at opposition and go, oh yeah, they look like a relatively half decent side. So I'll say November because our run after this break is outrageous still. Teams like Leicester away from home, Birmingham, who've spent loads of money. And then to be fair, we come back after the November break when I've just said I'll give my prediction, and we've got Coventry on a Tuesday night. My God. But yeah,
Yeah, let's
it's
let's not
frightening.
even talk about them lot. But yeah, I mean, you did touch on it. Let's talk about Southampton. Anyone in particular play for them that might come back to make me eat my words, Nathan? I can't think of anyone.
Well, there is one, but there's also he's one of four Explorer players, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
he's kind of the one that if ever there was going to be a typical Boro moment or just a typical Chris Casty on the pod moment, yeah, Finn Azar's yet to score or assist. Southampton going through a bit of a dodgy patch under their new manager, Will Still, and their fans haven't been very pleasant on social media with regards to Azaz's couple of performances that he's put up. So I hope he's not on social media because we'll probably see a transfer request in January. But yeah, Nathan, I mean, when we talk about you spoke about Ipswich, the level of quality they've got, well, Southampton have got that, if not more, really.
yeah, yeah, it's always the way with parachute sides where you look through their squads and you just think, how is this even the thing for the division? Like if you just look at the forwards in the championship as a whole, and you'd probably say Sargent, Haji Wright, are your two main ones that have got off to good starts this season. And then Ipswich, Hurst, yeah, he's okay. Depends what your class Akpom as well. Look at Southampton, Adam Armstrong, Cameron Archer, Ross Stewart. If this was 22-23, that's like the Avengers of Championship centre forwards. Yeah,
You've got
they've got
Damien Downs that they paid big money for as well.
exactly. So they've got young players as well that are coming into the football club and providing competition for those guys. Which it's even funny that they only play one striker as well, which is a bit outrageous. But
Yeah, I feel like the best utilization of their just talent in abundance in terms of strikers would just be Jonathan Woodgate's go-to formation whenever Borough were getting beat under his management, where it was basically just chuck every single striker that we've got on the pitch. Obviously, they have a lot better quality than Rudy Gestede, Lucas Nemecha, Ravel Morrison, probably. I can't even remember, and I don't want to take anyone's mind back to that period. But yeah, basically they've got lots of good strikers, but they've also got lots of other good players in and around them as well.
yeah, of course they do. Players like Shea Charles, Flynn Downs. They've signed a couple of players from abroad who I'm not too aware of to play in midfield as well. Ryan Fraser, Con Fellows. The list goes on and on, really, with the attacking talent that they've got, but they're also on paper got a half decent backline as well. Taylor Harwood Bellis has played for England and scored on his England debut. Jack Stevens gets a little bit of a bad rep, sort of like the hometown scapegoat at Southampton, which, yeah, I'm not too aware of his performances week in, week out, but he's always looked like a pretty sturdy player at this level. Ryan Manning, good delivery, pretty good left back for the level. Yeah, they've got an abundance of quality throughout the squad, but as you said, going through a little bit of a difficult time so far this season. One on opening day, unconvincingly. against Wrexham, scored in the last minute to sneak that one and win that 2-1, but haven't won in the league since then. They've only registered 6 points out of the first 6 games, and obviously the result yesterday raised a couple of eyebrows, which was Hull City 3, Southampton 1. Yeah, the response from Southampton's Twitter pretty much told you all you need to know, really. Some questioning the manager, some questioning the application of the players. At the minute, Azaz is feeling the same sort of treatment that he had here, which was division of the fan base. However, I feel that his the way that they're perceiving him at the minute is that it's like playing with 10, which to be fair, we had that a little bit at times last season. And fingers crossed it doesn't change next week, because that would be very typical of us to do so. But yeah, they have got a game on Tuesday night as well, which is nice, I suppose, from a Boro perspective, that we have a free week. Getting knocked out the cup against Doncaster wasn't too bad. Southampton go to Anfield on Tuesday night, so hopefully they get beat 8-0.
Yeah.
And all the first team players play.
I was just about to say it's a funny one because with them having a fixture and us not, obviously, you know, these players are really very, very fit, physical athletes. But Southampton have a big enough squad where they probably can actually make a number of changes and potentially may well do that. And obviously, we'll have to chase Liverpool around for 90 minutes, or I don't know if they take them to penalties, but I doubt they will. But yeah, it's I guess it's a bonus because it's extra minutes in their legs when, as you say, we're gonna have an extra week on the training pitch, and Rob and Harry and Adi all there spreading their messages and getting everyone up to speed even more. I think it's one of those games where you kind of think, like Ipswich, this form isn't going to continue all season. They will come good at some point, whether it's they have to fire a manager and then they do, or whether it's not until January and then they just put a run of games together. They have too many good players to be kind of languishing where they are in the table right now. I think what's interesting is obviously as Borough continue to win games, they're going into a very difficult away fixture. One that when the fixtures come out at the start of the season, you would have went, that's going to be a difficult game. But they're probably going into this game as favourites, and I think that's a weird dynamic because of the fact they're newly relegated. They've obviously reinvested. They've got a lot of good players, but Borough still go into this game, and it might be an interesting atmosphere because, as you say, there's already question marks and there is a lot of expectation on Will still. So the fact that they haven't got off to the best of starts, if Borough can, let's say, nick an early goal, you don't know kind of how that is going to affect the atmosphere and what kind of reaction that'll get. So I know, just reading your notes now for the podcast, Nathan, I've just seen, despite form, a point down there would be a top result. I'm guessing your tune hasn't changed since you typed that out earlier today, and you would go there and say right now you'd be delighted with a point.
Win your home games, draw your away games is my thought process. And if you go down there and even just grind out a 0-0, that'll do me. Get another point on the board. Get back up here for a game on a Tuesday night, and then get back down there and get another point at Fratton Park the week after. Yeah, it's, as I say, relentless championship fixtures, and the fact that we've got 2 visits to the South Coast in the space of 2 weeks is a little bit outrageous. But yeah, I'd definitely take a point down there next week, 100%.
Yeah, I think it will be a very difficult game. Of course, it will be. I mean, we always say it'll be a very difficult game, but let's be honest, is there really an easy game in the Championship, like you pointed out before? So, yeah, interesting to see if Borough can continue this form. I certainly hope so. And regardless of what happens, Middlesbrough will still be sat top of the division at the end of next week's round of fixtures. So we've got that to smile about, really. Yeah, unless there's anything else that you'd like to add, Nathan. I think that wraps us up for this week. Another podcast on top of the division. And again, I just want to say thank you for the continued support. Please obviously keep liking and subscribing. We're up to 701 subscribers. We've kind of just had a big jump right up there. And obviously I think always on YouTube the goal is to try and hit that magical 1,000. So please do subscribe if you're watching or listening and you haven't yet. And yeah, a big thank you from me, obviously, for all of the continued support across all platforms, but especially on YouTube.
Yeah, I reiterate the same point, Chris. Yeah, it's been mad to sort of look at the figures so far this season. I suppose it helps that you're doing well and Boro are top of the division. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, week out. And as I say, long may it continue with the wins and everyone tuning in for happy podcasts because we had about 3 months of iffy podcasts towards the back end of last season, which weren't the most enjoyable sort of environments to come into and record
No
and talk
wonder,
about
no
results.
wonder no one wanted to listen. We were just complaining and being miserable, weren't we, for an hour? It was just excuse to really rant. So yeah, who's to say that actually you can't have success on YouTube and as a podcast? When your team's doing well, everyone says, "Oh, Arsenal fan TV always perform the best after a loss." Well, Boropolis podcast seems to perform the best when we're doing well and at the top of the league. So, as you say, very fitting. Long may that continue. So, yes, as always, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Nathan, thank you for giving me your time on this Sunday evening. And as always, we'll be back next week with another episode of the Boropolis podcast.